Good evening, guys. It is Monday, April 12th, 2025. This Bathrobe business. I'm Giorgio Oganov. I got my decaf coffee and I got the news. So, as many of you already know, there is a deal that has been reached between the United States and China over the weekend in Switzerland. So, this is an evening podcast, so all of you probably know that. I'm going to reiterate a few points and try to offer a little clarification because even I was a little bit shady on it. So, this is a temporary pause. This is a temporary agreement for about 90 days. So both countries agreed to reduce their tariffs down to 10%. Now, that's more true for China for goods coming from the U.S. to China than it is in reverse. So let me reiterate a couple points. Firstly, if you'll remember, during the first Trump administration, Trump levied extra tariffs on China. Biden came in, he did not repeal those, and in fact, he doubled down on several technologies like wind turbines, solar panels, electric cars. He issued like 100% tariffs on it. Then in addition to that, there's a separate carve out for steel and aluminum. In addition to that, there's other carve outs for other industries and other tech sectors, and they did not repeal any of the embargoes on AI as was anticipated. So, all in all, even though there's a flat 10% tariff on China, it's actually probably closer to about 30% on most goods and products. Now, also one thing I do want to reiterate is all countries shipping into the United States have a flat 10% tariff right now. So really China has an additional 20% that isn't accounting for the other countries. However, in addition, if you'll recall, there was a new regulation passed by the Trump administration that ships coming into the United States that were not built by the U.S. manufacturing. So the cargo ship itself had to have been built in the United States to avoid an additional fee on cargo based on tonnage. From everything I could find, I don't believe that has been repealed either. So if you're a cargo ship that was built in France, you're bringing stuff into the United States from Britain, it doesn't matter. It could be any country you're coming from. As long as your ship was not built in the United States, you will have to pay an additional fee in tonnage based on how much cargo you're bringing in. From everything I can find, I think that is still in place. And like I said, all the pre-existing tariffs are in place, including de minimis tariffs, because the reason I say that is even though I couldn't find an article that specifically says that, Trump did say that there would still be a 20% tariff on anything that could be smuggling fentanyl into the country. So oftentimes the de minimis tariff is there. That's the Temu tariff, the stuff that's less than $800 coming into the United States, because oftentimes that's how fentanyl is smuggled into the United States. So I think the Temu tariffs are actually still in place as well. It's really actually hard to find good articles that are describing everything in detail, but from everything I could surmise, that's what I gathered. Now, I'm not really sharing a lot of these articles. They're all in the description below, but I feel like all of them say a partial truth. So I'm not going through each article individually like I normally do. But if you want to read on the articles in more detail, they are below. But essentially everything I just said is what those articles summarize. So one point I want to make, and this is kind of my headline point of this video. I think more than anything else, these tariffs have shown that Bitcoin is completely obsolete. It is a pointless system. It is a pointless equity, technology, currency, whatever you want to call it. Bitcoin is trash. And I've kind of hinted towards that more than a few times on this channel, sometimes more aggressively, sometimes a little more passively. You know I'm a huge proponent of gold, but Bitcoin I have kind of withheld calling trash up until now because I kind of wanted to see where it plays out. And it's played out exactly as anticipated. When all this market instability started to happen, Bitcoin started to crash. Now today, the second the market stabilizes and things get better, Bitcoin rises. To say that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation is not true. To say that it is an alternate currency that takes governments out of the picture is not true, seeing as how nobody uses it in a currency-like scenario outside of a few fringe money transfers that happen internationally. For the most part, Bitcoin has just become quite literally a Ponzi scheme. If the market is good and people have disposable income, it goes up. If the market is bad and it looks like that we're on the verge of a recession, Bitcoin drops as well. And it's always been that case. Bitcoin has always had this problem of whenever the market is taking steep shots down, It's not going up. It's actually going down. I've also talked on this channel about how Peter Thiel, once a huge proponent of Bitcoin, has, as far as I know, all but divested completely from it. He does not believe in the technology anymore. He's made a few comments about how he doesn't think it's reliable or certain. And this is one of the guys that was one of the early proponents of it. Now, before this just sounds like talk and bluster. I do want to share a couple of charts. So here is the chart for Bitcoin going back 6 months. So back here at the start of the Trump administration, it was at 106,000. Then all the conflict with the tariffs and all of the instability that we've been exposed to over the last several months started, and Bitcoin plummeted down to, I think the low was 72,000. In this chart, it's showing me 76, but 76,000. And now that everything has improved, it's rallied back up. That's not how a hedge against inflation or against governments work. In the face of this instability, Bitcoin should be rocketing up. So the high peaks should be in this area right here, from the end of February to the end of April. This is where Bitcoin should have rallied and hit all-time new highs. It didn't, because it's not a safe haven and it's not a retreat from governments or instability in the market. Now, compare that to gold. What happened with gold? Well, it's exactly what should have happened. During that same period of instability, gold rallied. Yes, there were dips. There's no question. No market is absolute. But gold rallied during that time and is now sitting at an all-time high. Bitcoin still is not. This is not Bitcoin's all-time high. Bitcoin's all-time high was around 106,000, I believe. It's not in this chart, but I believe it's hit an all-time high of 106 or 107,000. Gold is still sitting near its all-time high. It hit during all this period of instability, gold hit an all-time high of above 3,500. So this is why I constantly say on this channel, you should be buying gold. If it's the taxi driver rule, if your taxi driver is talking about it, it's probably advice you shouldn't be taking. If your taxi driver is talking about Bitcoin, you shouldn't be buying it. But none of them are talking about gold. And gold is going to rally. And large institutions are divesting from Bitcoin and moving into gold. Major investors are moving into gold. Let's not forget that China, Russia, Iran, India, they're all hedging with heavy investments into gold. Gold is going to continue to rise. Like I keep saying, it's going to hit 5,000 by the end of the decade. So far, I've been right with my prediction on where gold prices are. I said it would hit 3,500 before the end of the second quarter. It hit that in April, and it's going to go up again. This is currently a slight drop from where it's been in the last couple of weeks. Now is the time to buy. Buy it now. Hedge against all the issues that are going to come. So that's my headline story. That's what I draw most from all of the information that came out today with China and the United States. It's that gold is a true safe haven and you should be buying it. Now, last couple of stories I'm going to jump into. Memorial Day travel forecast is set to break a 20-year record despite economic gloom. So this is interesting. Now, what is also interesting is this isn't just through air travel. In fact, air travel is probably going to be hitting a bit of a slump simply because more Americans seem to be driving during their Memorial Day holidays and taking more vacations on the road than they are by air. Air travel seems to be going through a bit of a slump unless you're talking about luxury and business class and up travel. Those sectors seem to be growing. So those in the affluent communities seem to be flying more than ever. But those of us in the middle class and below are flying less and less and less due to this economic instability. However, the economy does seem to be stable enough that Memorial Day travel is set to break an all-time record set back in 2005. A lot of this is with pre-bookings from travel sites. A lot of it is with tickets that have been purchased through various parks. It's showing that we are ready to set a new all-time high for Memorial Day travel. And usually, if you've got a strong Memorial Day, you've got a strong summer season as well. Last story I'm going to share is the one on drug prices. Oh, no, actually, I'm going to share two quick stories. One more story I want to share is Trump's tariff. Trump talked about in April. a record that helped cut the budget deficit by a noticeable figure. I'm not going to say a substantial figure. Why this is interesting is, sorry, there's a news story in the back. It's always Fox News that talks in the back. Why this is interesting is this is kind of part of Trump's external revenue system, right? So he said we don't need an internal revenue agency, we need an external revenue agency. This kind of does underpin his point, because in April, we more than doubled the amount of tax info that came in through the ports as compared to last year. And it was also up from March, where some of those tariffs were already in place, but it kept doubling down in April. So just an interesting story that Trump may be right that we could actually glean some tax revenue off of these tariffs, because 16 billion in 1 year, in 1 quarter, in 1 month is not bad at all. Now, last story I want to talk about. This is the one about the Trump drug price cut. So Trump has passed an executive order that says that he wants to cut drug prices in the United States. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this story, simply because for right now, this is kind of a nonsense story. I do think it was interesting enough to mention, but the reason I don't think it's going to lead to anything is this is just an executive order. And Trump has already actually passed this once before. During the first administration, he passed a similar executive order. It was actually struck down by the courts. For one, there's very little substance into how drug companies are supposed to cut these prices. The main goal is to get them to charge the same fees domestically as they do internationally. Oftentimes here in the United States, we pay a premium because of, call it the R&D premium, because drug companies say that they pass the cost of our research and development onto us, but internationally they do not do that. That's why drugs are often cheaper internationally than they are here domestically. Like I said, the mechanism of how they're supposed to be doing this is a little bit vague, but again, it will probably be struck down by the courts. However, if the House or Senate, or potentially both, did pick this up and mimic the same structure, it could in fact cut drug prices substantially. So that is the only thing I will mention, is right now this doesn't have much teeth, but it could quickly grow some fangs if Congress actually got their stuff together. So that's all I'm going to mention. That's the kind of delving more into politics than it is business, but I did think it was important enough of a story to talk about. That's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories of the day. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow, and I hope you have a productive Tuesday. And tomorrow we should get new inflation numbers out, so we'll see what happens with how tariffs have affected those in the last couple of weeks. Thanks. Bye-bye.